It was Valentine's Day. My husband James in turn suddenly added me on WeChat. In the photo, Sophia wearing a sexy halter dress. Her breasts were barely visible. She only had 4 words to go with the photo: once a foodie, always a foodie. I recognized the watch on the man's wrist in the photo at once. I had given it to James myself, so that was why he wasn't having dinner with me tonight. I had been feeling particularly bad lately, as James had been growing increasingly distant. James always took my efforts for granted. James always took my love for granted. He didn't know that love could also run out. I was tired. I decided to let go. But when the moment really came, he backed down. Dear, there's suddenly an urgent meeting. I won't be able to go home tonight. I'm putting in the last rose. I received a message from my husband James. For this special day, I started preparing this heartwarming dinner a week in advance. Although I know he's busy at work, I can't help but send him a message begging him. After working for so many years, he finally has a holiday. Can he please cancel it? I've prepared some little gift. James quickly sends a voice message. His tone seems a little impatient. Stop being so selfish, okay? I'm the one who has to carry the burden at work. Unlike you, who sits at home all day. I'm not asking you for help, but at least don't make things difficult for me, okay? I work so hard, just so you can have a good life. When I have time tomorrow, I'll spend some time with you. After hearing these words, I subconsciously clenched the phone. 2 years ago in an accident, a laboratory explosion cost me my right arm. During those difficult days, James took over my company and became the head of Smith Group. He didn't despise me with a disability. I've always remembered this kindness, but now every word he says stings like a needle. The carefully prepared candlelight and food now seem particularly ironic. I've just finished typing a reply, then a strange account requests to add me as a friend. The avatar gives me a sense of déjà vu. She's just posted a selfie. In the photo, she's wearing a low-cut sundress. Her pale arms are particularly attractive. The caption reads, "Once you've had a taste, you're hooked." I looked at the photo more closely. I noticed a man's hand in the corner. The watch on his wrist was a limited edition that James treasured. My heart skipped a beat. A comment suddenly appeared at the bottom of the photo. James wrote, "I'll die on you tonight." Seeing those words seemed to freeze the blood in my body. That's when I remembered why this account looked so familiar. Isn't she Sophia? The intern James deliberately recruited 6 months ago intentionally recruited Sophia, the intern, into the company on the pretext of training new talent. Over the past year, James has always met with her frequently under the guise of mentoring. Recently, the frequency of their meetings has increased. I asked James around the edges. Each time, James explained that he was just helping the younger generation and incidentally concerned about Sophia's career development. Seeing that I was a little uneasy, James would always gently stroke my face. "Honey, don't worry about it. Sophia is just a young girl who has just graduated. She doesn't understand anything. To me, she's just a student who needs guidance. She's not worth worrying about." Before long, the student who claimed to need guidance was showing off her success in front of me. When Sophia posted about it, she deliberately included her full address. I struggled into a loose jacket to hide my missing arm. I staggered to the fancy club. As I entered the lobby, I hear 2 male receptionists chatting in a low voice. This ostentation is really eye-catching. They have booked the whole place. I glance at it as I pass by. It is decorated like a fairy tale. The combination of the CEO and the innocent schoolgirl. This plot is simply irresistible. It is a completely realistic idol drama. They see me from a distance. They immediately say with a standard smile, "Hello, madam. The venue has been booked today." I hold back my anger. My voice was a little hoarse. James asked me to deliver some documents. "Please let me in." As soon as I mentioned James, the 2 receptionists thought I was an employee of the company. Not only did they let me in, they enthusiastically told me which floor to go to. Seeing the couple in the private room on the top floor enjoying their candlelight dinner destroyed my last bit of hope. I confronted James. "This is what you call an urgent meeting?" James was caught off guard by my sudden appearance, but instead of panicking, he frowned. "Emily, You actually followed me. I didn't even look at him. I pointed directly at Sophia. We've been married for 2 years. On Valentine's Day, you left me at home alone, and you booked the club to spend time with her. James, don't you think you owe me an explanation? Hearing me say this, Sophia immediately stood up, putting on a pitiful look. You must be Emily. Please don't misunderstand. There's nothing going on between James and me. James saw that I had just arrived here. I'm not familiar with the place. He was afraid that I wouldn't be able to get used to it, so he came here to comfort me, Sophia said, and raised her glass. This action made me see clearly what she was wearing. She was wearing a long dress with an open back. When she walked, the curves of her body were faintly visible. Sophia said, "It was my inconsideration. I let Emily misunderstand, and kept James waiting for so long. I'm really sorry. Please accept this glass of wine." Before she could finish her sentence, Sophia's hand slipped as she walked over to me. The entire glass of champagne splashed onto my empty sleeve. "Oh dear, Emily, I'm so sorry. I was so careless." My heart ached. I immediately pushed her away. Unexpectedly, she suddenly felt like she had been hit hard. She fell backwards as a whole. Lying on the ground, she wept heartrendingly. "Sophia." James walked quickly over to her and helped her up. His eyes were full of pain. Sophia rubbed her wrist. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Emily, it was my fault. I'll accept any punishment you want to give me. I just hope you won't be upset with James and me. If Emily doesn't want to see me, I'll resign tomorrow. I'll leave you and James forever." Watching Sophia twist the truth, I was so angry I trembled all over. "Don't pretend you don't know what's going on. It's you. Stop it." James shouted at me. "Emily, what are you doing? Can you stop sulking? After what happened to you, I took over the company. I've always looked out for you. What more do you want? Emily, out of old times respect, I have no choice but to divorce you. I've done my best. Every time I see your mangled arm, it makes me feel really uncomfortable. If you stop making things difficult for Sophia, we can still be a couple in public. Otherwise, don't blame me for turning my back on you." Hearing James say those hurtful words, I suddenly felt a chill run through my body. He actually resented my injured arm, but has he forgotten that this was all a tragedy caused by his mishandling in the lab? If he hadn't violated the rules that day and caused the lab to explode, I wouldn't have rushed into the flames to save him. As I was being wheeled into the operating room, I shouted in a daze, "Save my husband, the husband in the lab." After I recovered from my illness, James cried his eyes out in front of family and friends. He said he would take good care of me for the rest of his life. Because of this, when I decided to step back into the background, the old employees looked at me with sympathy and gave James their full support when he first took over. 5 years passed in a flash. The person who once vowed to be by my side forever is now defending another woman. He has hurt me with the most hurtful words. "James, stop arguing with Emily. It's all my fault. I'll leave now." Thanks to James' care over the past year, I don't have any other requests. I just hope to keep this bracelet as a memento. Sophia slowly removed the bracelet from her wrist. While James wasn't looking, she gave me a meaningful look. James said, "This bracelet has been blessed. Even if I'm alone, as long as I wear it, I'll have the courage to persevere." Seeing Sophia so vulnerable, James's eyes grew even more compassionate. He said, "Since I gave it to you, it's your thing now. Hand it over." I interrupted him coldly. "Give me back my bracelet." When I first lost my arm, James could never sleep. He tossed and turned all night. To help him, I endured the pain of my wound tearing open. Step by step, I climbed the 999 steps. I went to the temple on purpose to pray for this bracelet that would protect me. I sincerely prayed, just hoping that Buddha would bless the safety and happiness of the person I love most. But now, the bracelet I went through so much trouble to get, he has easily given to someone else. I stumbled towards Sophia. I didn't care that my clothes were soaked in wine. The bracelet was on her wrist. I grabbed it with all my might. Her skin turned red. Just as I was about to take back the bracelet, James yelled. He kicked my broken arm hard. Ah! My injury hit the corner of the table. My bones, which were not yet fully healed, began to ache. I fell heavily to the ground. I turned pale with pain. Seeing me in such a sorry state, James not only showed no sympathy, instead, he yelled angrily, "It's just an ordinary bracelet. It's no big deal. You actually hit Sophia. That's just too much. You want the bracelet. Here, take it all." James grabbed the dinner knife with a violent grip. He swung it with all his strength. The bracelet snapped. The beads scattered in all directions. They fell all over the floor. He looked down at me. He grabbed the lily flower on the table and threw it at my face. He knew I was allergic to pollen. This bracelet is precious, not only because of those long steps. More importantly, I collected these beads from all over the place, one by one. Help! The pollen irritated my trachea. I immediately felt suffocated. I writhed on the ground in pain. I shivered and reached out to James. "Call an ambulance." He kicked me away with disgust. "Don't touch me. The explosion didn't kill you. What's an allergy? Emily, you hurt Sophia today. This is your punishment. Remember this lesson." After saying that, he dragged Sophia past me, ignoring my pleas for help completely. As I was about to faint, I faintly heard him whisper to Sophia, "Let's go back and get you bandaged up. Your wrist is all red. You have a good heart. How can you let her treat you like this? Don't worry. I'll protect you. I won't let her bully you again." Sophia replied softly, "As long as I can stay by James' side, it's no big deal to get hurt a little." Although I was delirious, seeing this scene still tore my heart apart. My breathing grew weaker and weaker. In the end, I passed out in despair. I thought it was all over. Unexpectedly, when I woke up again, I was already lying in a hospital bed. 2 receptionists came up out of curiosity to check on me. They happened to notice that I was in danger. I stared blankly at the white ceiling. My mind was a mess. At that moment, my phone rang. It was Sophia, who had sent me a voice message. Her gentleness towards James had vanished in an instant. Her tone was full of sarcasm. "Emily, you're really tough. You're still alive. To tell you the truth, while you were looking for the bracelet, James had been hoping you would die on the mountain. He had long wanted to get rid of you as a cripple. You'd better get smart. Get out of the way now." I swiped through the photos she had just posted on her social media. She was holding hands with James. I gave a bitter smile. Things had come to this. I should leave gracefully. I told Lawyer Chin, "Please prepare the divorce agreement for me." On the day I was discharged from the hospital, I called James. As soon as the call connected, he said in an impatient tone, "Emily, why are you always so persistent? A few days ago you were quite stubborn. Now you're begging me. Let me tell you, unless you apologize to Sophia, don't expect me to forgive you." The sound of the phone hanging up still rang in my ears. I never got to say the word divorce. Sophia immediately posted a photo of her and James shopping in the mall on her social media. James was smiling happily in the photo. I haven't seen that gentle side of him in a long time. And now he's right in front of me. He's always been cold. It feels like he's far away. I finished the discharge procedures alone. The nurses passing by looked at me with sympathetic eyes. I just walked out of the hospital gate. Suddenly, a strange man's voice came from behind me. "Emily." I turned around in confusion. The man introduced himself. "I'm Lucas." "Emily, the truth about the explosion in the lab 5 years ago. Do you want to know?" When someone mentioned the explosion that changed my life, my face immediately turned ugly. "What truth?" "The police have already investigated this matter. Not long after the incident, the police arrested the person in charge of the laboratory. That person quickly confessed to the crime. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. The case has long been closed. What secrets could there still be?" Lucas stared at me and said slowly, "The person in charge of the laboratory was my father. He was forced to do it." When he mentioned this matter, fire burst from Lucas's eyes. "I've had a weak kidney since I was young. My parents saved and scrimped to pay for my treatment. 3 years ago, we finally got a suitable kidney donor, but James used his power to take the kidney away. He also threatened my father. If we didn't do what he said, he wouldn't give me the kidney. Our ordinary family was no match for James. My illness got worse and worse. My father had no choice. He had to agree to his demands. James told my father to set off an explosion in the lab. He wanted to kill you in there. But my father finally had a change of heart. He notified the security guards in advance. That's why you survived. These words made me freeze in place. No wonder James urged me to go to the lab that day. No wonder this case has been progressing so smoothly. From the very beginning, James has been planning a murder. He wanted to kill me, just to take over my company. This husband I spend every day with is actually a demon in human skin. A cold feeling rises from the soles of my feet, followed by a strong anger. I stare at Lucas, who has come to see me on purpose, and ask, "What exactly are you trying to say?" Lucas's eyes are full of the flames of revenge. "James not only destroyed my home, but also caused you to lose your arm. Let's work together. Let's make him take responsibility for his actions." Seeing Lucas's outstretched right hand, I think about it for a long time, and finally decisively shake it. I pushed open the front door. I saw the roses in the living room had withered and rotted. I sat quietly on the sofa. James let out a cold huff as soon as he entered the room. He went straight upstairs. He said, "I want a divorce." His words stopped him in his tracks. He turned around. His voice was low. "What are you playing at? After all these years, I don't want to make things difficult. If you pretend you don't know about Sophia, we can continue living together." I sneered. "Is it because of the love we have shared over the years? Or is it because of my company?" Speaking of the company, James's face immediately changed. He raised his head with an arrogant look. "What does that mean? I have been managing the company for all these years. The entire Smith Group now only listens to me. Do you think it is the same as before? If we get a divorce, I will get half of the company and all other property. By then, you will be in poor health. Life will be difficult." Greed shone in his eyes. Seeing that I'm in a difficult situation, he became even more arrogant. He knew that I had no one to help me now. Even if I found out that he was cheating, he still dared to be so arrogant. He looked up at the upstairs. His tone was full of meaning. "Sophia is already pregnant with my child. This child of course has the right to a share of the family property. Emily, you'd better think carefully." Upon hearing this news, I didn't react at all. Instead, I got so angry that I stood up straight. Ever since I got injured, he has used my poor health as an excuse and hasn't touched me for almost a year. Sophia is pregnant. We all know whose child it is. You let her have an illegitimate child and now you want this child to share my inheritance. Seeing me shaking with anger, James looked pleased with himself. Illegitimate child. Emily, in this situation, whether or not the child is illegitimate, I still call the shots. Do you think Smith Group is still under your control? He looked so confident. I couldn't help but smile. The smile held a deep meaning. "James, you really think you're that great? You can survive in Smith Group? The business world is a battlefield. You're overestimating yourself." James' heart trembled at my cold gaze. "What do you mean?" I clapped my hands lightly. Then there was a sound of footsteps behind James. Seeing several senior directors, James's heart tightened. "Who asked you to come? Why are you here?" The director in charge bowed lightly to me. "Emily personally asked us to come." Seeing that the directors all support me, James finally understood. I have never really let him manage the company. Smith Group will always be my Emily's world. James stared at me angrily, fiercely said, "Emily, I really underestimated you. You should know, our assets have been mixed together over the years. If we divorce, I can get a large part of your money. After I get the money, I will go far away with Sophia. You cripple, you will live alone from now on." James has turned his back on me, but I am still very calm. I rest my hand on my chin. I smile at him. "Oh, then I can't let you go. If Sophia saw you like this, would she still stay by your side?" James clenched his fists. His eyes were determined. "Sophia and I truly love each other. She will definitely stay by my side." James was full of confidence, but he didn't know. The simple and lovely Sophia in his eyes was actually a very calculating person in the workplace. Lucas has been quietly collecting information on her for years to help me vent my anger. Before I discovered the flirtatious relationship between Sophia and James, Lucas had already noticed something was wrong with Sophia. He told me, "Sophia relies on her good looks to attract attention in the office. Since James has decided that Sophia is the one, I'll let him see her true colors, as I had arranged." Lucas transferred to Sophia's department as the new project manager. Lucas seemed smart and capable, and quickly attracted Sophia's attention. Sophia used her usual methods, by often showing up in Lucas's presence, but with James as her protector, she didn't dare go too far. Just then, James suddenly approached her. I heard that James wants to spend his life with her, and he's even asked her to manage the company. Sophia was overjoyed. She had deliberately caused me trouble before, letting me discover James's infidelity. It was all to get this position. Now she was finally going to turn the tables. Of course she was overjoyed. Her smile froze at James' words. He said, "Sophia, I underestimated Emily. She has been manipulating the company behind the scenes. Now our plan has been exposed. I can't pretend anymore. I'm getting a divorce. That way we can be together openly." Sophia immediately asked, "If you don't get Smith Group, how much will you get after the divorce?" James' face immediately fell when he heard this. He stuttered for a while, before he spoke haltingly, "If I can get a divorce, I can get half of her assets. She is now determined not to divorce, and has frozen my bank card. But Sophia, don't worry. I will definitely separate from her as soon as possible." Sophia of course understood the meaning of this. She was pretending to be attached to James' money. Now she knows that James' bank card has been frozen. Don't even mention spending money on her in the future. I might even have to rely on her for help. Sophia's face suddenly turned pale. "Don't worry, James." But she quickly forced a smile. "You promised to marry me. I'm your only wife. I'll wait for you." James was very moved by this. He kept thinking to himself that he really had found the right person. I was just about to make out with Sophia when her phone suddenly rang. Sophia glanced at the caller ID. She glanced at James anxiously, and went outside to answer the phone. When she returned, she kissed James apologetically. "James, the director suddenly called for me. I have to go back to the company quickly. You rest assured and get better. I will visit you again in a few days." After saying that, James had not yet had time to respond. He hurriedly left. In fact, the person who called was not the director. It was Lucas. Sophia didn't expect that I usually keep a low profile, but as soon as I make a move, I control James. Now, she could only hope that I would let bygones be bygones, and quickly find another patron. Seeing Sophia leave James behind and hurry over, she had even brought some wine. Lucas immediately put on a polite smile. Sophia was a master of love. She thought this was a good opportunity. James was useless anyway. She didn't have to worry about anything anymore. Sophia walked up to Lucas. Her eyes were gentle. She whispered to him, "Lucas, there's something I've been keeping inside for a long time. I've never had the courage to say it. Now I can't hide my feelings for you any longer. I have to tell you, Lucas, I'm in love with you. From the moment we met, you've fascinated me. I know there are always lots of people around you who like you. I don't expect you to respond to me. I just want you to know how I feel. Give me a chance to prove my love for you." Looking at Sophia's sincere expression, Lucas sneered inwardly. Facing her expectant gaze, Lucas pretended to be shy and nodded. "Sophia, I'm willing to try and accept you." Things went so well that Sophia couldn't believe it. She was overjoyed. She completely missed the signs that something was wrong. After the two of them confirmed their relationship, Sophia tried every means possible to get money out of Lucas. Lucas also acted like a simple rich second generation. He did whatever Sophia told him to do. Sophia was completely focused on pleasing Lucas. Gradually, she neglected James. James' company was about to restructure. His mood was very volatile. They often argued on the phone. Gradually, Sophia began to avoid James. She stopped contacting him. Later, she simply disappeared. 2 months passed. Sophia was enjoying her sweet romance. Unexpectedly, an anonymous post suddenly appeared on the company forum. It said that she was dating several people at the same time. She was also being supported by a rich man. The rumors spread like wildfire. Her colleagues couldn't stop talking about it. Sophia felt so uncomfortable. Some people pointed at her. "It's her. My friend was ruined by her. I gave her a lot of money when we were dating. I never thought she would be cheating on me with someone else. I remember seeing her at my father's dinner party. She was enthusiastically accompanying a rich businessman. I thought I was mistaking someone else. I never thought she would really find a rich man. Facing the onslaught of accusations, Sophia felt utterly humiliated. She shouted at her gossiping colleagues, "These are all lies. I've never done any of those things. When I find the person behind this, I won't let him off the hook." Sophia was about to defend herself when Lucas slowly walked out of the crowd. He looked very sad. He slapped Sophia directly in the face. "Sophia, you lied to me. I really misjudged you. I can't believe I trusted you." As soon as Lucas arrived, Sophia panicked. She quickly grabbed Lucas' wrist. Anxiously, she said, "Lucas, let me explain. Someone must have set me up. I've never done anything to hurt you. You're the only one in my heart. You're still trying to deny it." Lucas was in tears. Angrily, he threw the document in Sophia's face. "Take a good look." James's pregnancy test report was in front of her. Sophia suddenly felt unsteady. Sophia didn't know what to say. Lucas took over. "My family agrees. I'll take you home to meet them on vacation. You're something, sneaking around like this." Hearing that Lucas had planned to take her home to meet his family, now it had become so awkward. Sophia hated the person behind this. She didn't know what to do. The screen of her phone lit up. It was James calling. Seeing James' name and thinking about the pregnancy test in Lucas' hand, Sophia had a terrible thought. She clenched her fists. James must have found out something. He came here to mess with me on purpose. Sophia suppressed her anger. Pretending to be calm, she said to Lucas, "Lucas, there must be something wrong with this report. Let me try to do something about it. I'm sure I can figure this out." James called. "It was because I told him Sophia had cheated on me. I thought about how I had turned my back on Sophia for her sake, but she had been having an affair behind my back." James had to get some answers. As soon as the call connected, he interrogated her in a condescending and harsh manner. "Sophia, you've got some nerve. How dare you betray me? I gave up Lucas for you, and this is how you repay me. Are you taking advantage of my current situation and want to find someone else?" "Sophia, you still have my shares in your hands. If you want to leave, it's not that simple." James's intention was to make Sophia admit her mistake, because he had truly treated her well. But when these words reached Sophia's ears, it made her even more convinced that James was behind everything. Sophia tried hard to control her emotions, and said gently to the other end of the phone, "James, you've got it wrong. I want to explain to you in person. Let's meet the day after tomorrow. Is that okay?" This was the first time in 2 months that Sophia had taken the initiative to meet James. Although James was uncomfortable, he still tidied himself up and went to meet Sophia. Fate is unpredictable. On the way to meet Sophia, an out-of-control truck suddenly swerved onto the road. He felt his world spinning. He was hit hard. He immediately passed out. His chest felt like it was on fire. It was the peak of the evening rush hour. A passerby saw James lying in a pool of blood. He called an ambulance. After the ambulance took him to the nearby hospital, the hospital immediately informed me. The doctor told me with a serious expression on his face. He was badly injured. His left leg had to be amputated due to tissue necrosis. The police checked the surveillance cameras at the scene of the accident. They quickly found the driver. The driver's story was exactly the same as Lucas's father's. He admitted his crime directly. He said he was not good at that. His wife divorced him, so he resents young men. He acted on impulse. The police investigated and found that this reason sounded quite reasonable. Towards the end of the case, I decided to meet the driver. In the small interview room, I took out a bank card and said, "You didn't mean to hit the person, did you? I heard that your wife had an accident at work. Over the years, you have traveled all over the world for medical treatment. It's been quite difficult. Your experience really breaks my heart. But I had a similar accident 5 years ago, so this kind of trick won't work on me. There's $1 million in this card. Just tell me the truth. The money is yours." Hearing such a large sum of money, the driver was obviously tempted. After some internal struggle, he finally told the truth, pointing out that James was behind the accident. It turned out that not only did James know about it back then, Sophia also knew about it a long time ago. He deliberately imitated the method used back then. He wanted to get rid of James as a hindrance once and for all, so that he and Lucas could be together forever. When the police burst into the hospital room, Sophia was gently comforting James. When she saw the police trying to arrest someone, his face suddenly changed. He shouted angrily, "What are you doing? I've always been a law-abiding citizen." The police were well prepared. They immediately produced the latest testimony from the driver of the car involved in the accident. It clearly stated that Sophia paid 200,000 yuan and instructed him to plan the accident. The evidence was right in front of him. Sophia could no longer deny it. The court convicted him of abetting intentional injury and sentenced him to 8 years in prison. James learned of everything in the hospital room. He looked at his empty left leg and couldn't help crying. "Why? How could he do this to me?" he said while crying. Seeing me by the bedside, James' eyes were filled with tears, like a child who has finally found a home after getting lost. "Emily, I know I was wrong. I was so stupid. I can't believe I trusted someone like Sophia. Now I finally understand. You are the only one in this world who has been genuinely kind to me. Give me another chance. Let me start over. Is that okay?" He grabbed the hem of my shirt, his face full of pleading. I smiled coldly. "You are so naive." As soon as I finished speaking, the door to the ward slowly opened. Lucas appeared in the doorway. James was shocked. He shouted at Lucas angrily, "How dare you come here? It's all your fault. Sophia treated me like this because of you. What do you want now?" As soon as he saw Lucas standing quietly behind me, his anger immediately turned to fear. He stared at me as if he suddenly understood. "So that's what happened. You set her up. Emily, you've been setting this up." Facing his accusations, I said bluntly, "You made me a cripple. Now you're just suffering the consequences." James trembled when he heard this. His whole body shook. His face turned pale as paper. He stuttered, This is impossible." He suddenly looked at Lucas. He recognized the boy who had been threatened by him 5 years ago. "It was you. So this was all a trap set by you." Knowing that he could not escape, James fell back on the hospital bed in despair. He wept bitterly. Unfortunately, it was too late to regret. With the evidence found by Lucas and his testimony, the investigation into the bombing 5 years ago was reopened. The court eventually sentenced James to 20 years in prison. On the day of the verdict, I accompanied Lucas to visit his father's grave. Lucas said, "My father died of guilt shortly after going inside." After the memorial service, Lucas suddenly knelt in front of me. He bowed heavily to his father's grave. "The debt my father owed, I will repay today. Emily, please accept my apologies and gratitude." Looking at the simple face on the tombstone, I felt a myriad of emotions. In the past, I hated him in particular, but when the truth was revealed, I felt quite sorry for him. He was used by James. After all, it was James' ambition that caused all this. We have all become his victims. I sighed and turned to leave. "Your mother was at fault. You have already paid for her sins. From now on, you must live a good life on your own." I have now fully adapted to the empty sleeves. I can walk steadily even on uneven roads. I looked up. Let the warm sunshine gently caress my face. Enjoying this warmth, unconsciously, I have already walked out of the quagmire that I once thought would trap me forever. The shadows of the past have finally disappeared. The pressure in my heart has also been released. From now on, I will use my incomplete body to continue writing the chapters of my life. I clench my fists, feeling the warmth in my palms. I tell myself that even though I have a physical disability, I must forge ahead courageously. A new chapter is beginning. I am ready to welcome each new tomorrow.